great to be here. Like Marie yesterday, I am so stoked to be on this stage. For those of you that may not know much about me, I am the proud mother to 3 very small children, ages 7, 5, and 2. You're going to learn a bit about them. So today, during my talk, I'm going to be talking about these 2 algorithms. And I often think about these 2 algorithms, the local algorithm and the organic algorithm. I feel like people often view them like my daughters are displayed here. People usually think, okay, if I optimize for one, I optimize for the other, because they generally get along and they kind of work together. So those of you that are parents may see where I'm going here. I often feel like the local algorithm is often like the younger sibling in this equation. She's younger, she often gets underestimated, and she most definitely has a mind of her own. So to be clear about what I'm talking about here, when I talk about the local algorithm, I'm talking about this 3-pack that we traditionally see for searches like plumber or doctor near me. They're also called Google My Business listings, Google Maps listings. They used to be called Google Plus listings. Google likes to change it up every few years just to confuse us all. But that is all fueled by the local algorithm. And then organic, when you hear me talking about that, that's like everything else that the rest of you deal with. So we have noticed a shift here. Traditionally, we used to see that these 2 overlapped quite a bit. And I'm going to quote this recent white paper that Moz did, and it was really fascinating because it kind of matches what we've been seeing. They found that only 8% of local pack results had a website that also appeared in the search engine results below, so organic. And digging a little further, out of that 8%, only 12% were actually in the top 20. So this is very, very different than like other studies we've seen that have come out years ago. They used to say the overlap rate was like 60, 70, 80%. So I'm going to be digging into factors that particularly look at the local algorithm or the Google My Business listing and going through 7 different things that we have kind of seen have a major impact on the local algorithm. So to start, I'm going to talk about proximity. If you're wondering what that word means, just to define it here, proximity is your location as the user or the searcher. So when you go to Google on your phone or your computer and you do a search, down at the very bottom of your search results, you will usually see a zip code based on the location that you happen to be in. Sometimes it's more granular than this. On your cell phone, you may actually see a blue dot where Google can actually see your actual coordinates. They know a lot about you. It's kind of creepy. So according to the Moz Local Search Ranking Factors study last year, proximity is the #1 thing that influences ranking in the local pack results. We see this a lot. And to kind of help illustrate this a bit, there was a study that was done by Juris Digital. And what they did is they took a single keyword for a lawyer. They searched on 138 different zip codes, and they found that the results varied quite drastically. There was a total of 82 different law firms represented, all within the Houston area. And linked to the study here, it is quite fascinating. And we may have heard a couple times in this conference that tracking from zip codes is something that you should be considering or thinking about, because if you're tracking from a city level, you're not getting accurate results. Unfortunately, it gets even more complicated than that. This is a tool that I love and we use quite a bit, known as the Local Falcon. For those of you that aren't familiar with this tool, how it works is you go and you put in a business, and then you put in a keyword, and then you can scan, and it uses actual geo-coordinates as the location of the user. So a lot more accurate for what you would actually get if you were searching on your mobile device. So this is a search here for dentists near me, and why this is really fascinating is you'll see in this example, what I've highlighted in blue, this is all the exact same zip code. So you've got 77006, the zip code in Houston, and if I'm like talking to a business owner, I'm like, yeah, you rank first in that zip code. Is that really an accurate statement? Because here you can see in some parts of the zip code they're 3rd, in some they're 8th, in some they're 5th. I mean, really, what is their actual position? To show you what this looks like in the actual search results, here's the keyword scanned from 2 of those points within the same zip code, half a mile away. And if you look closely, you will notice that the 3 dentists on the left don't overlap whatsoever with the 3 dentists on the right. So they're completely different. Your searcher's location is literally just half a mile away. And dentists are a really good illustration of this because there are so many dentists all over the place. So it's very high proximity. We see this also with like industries like restaurants. So according to the same local search ranking factors study that Moz did, on the organic side, proximity does matter. So I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It is just not as great. So unlike what we see with the local packs where it's #1, it was ranked as the 27th thing that impacts organic ranking. So we decided that we would kind of mimic the Juris Digital study, and we did a similar thing where we took one keyword and then kind of abbreviated it to see if there was a difference, and searched in the Toronto area across 72 postal codes. That's what we call zip codes. So we found that the top ranking law firm in the organic results was there for 100% of the time. So very, very different than what we were seeing in the Juris Digital study. Here's another thing that will kind of help illustrate it. This is using one of my favorite tools called Places Scout. And this is a client of ours, and when I searched for lawn care in the greater Toronto area, he ranks pretty well organically. Like, he has a pretty wide spread when you search for lawn care in the organic side. On the local side, so the local pack rankings, he doesn't rank as well. The moment you kind of get away from his actual office location, the less likely he is to rank. So anything that's red or yellow, he is not on the first page for. So it's not at all shocking that 90% of his traffic for this keyword comes from organic. However, that is not always the case. We see lots of other industries where when we look at the leads that clients are getting from Google My Business versus organic, Google My Business is killing it. And we get way more leads from there, way more calls from there. We invest more time in like obsessing about their local pack rankings because the volume of leads that they get is higher. And if you're wondering how we're able to isolate this, you can do this inside Search Console if you are using UTM codes inside Google My Business. If you don't do this already, I have a really detailed tutorial that shows you exactly how to do that so that you can go into Search Console, segment the data, and actually track where your traffic's coming from so you know which algorithm to focus on. Next, I'm going to kind of dive a little bit more into rank tracking. So I've kind of already explained that rank tracking is problematic and difficult for those of us that work in local search. And unfortunately, it's about to get a little worse. So there was this tweet that was done by Chris Green where he did this really fascinating study. He decided to take a single keyword and scan daily. So most of us, maybe we scan, he scanned hourly. Most of us scan daily or maybe weekly, sometimes monthly. But he thought he'd check to see how much the search results varied based on the hour of the day, which is really cool. So what he found, you'll kind of see in this graph, is that anything below page 1 was very choppy. There was a lot of variance, which was interesting. So we were like, okay, we know this is true for organic. How does it look in local? It's a lot worse. In local, we find that anything below position 5 is really choppy. And I'll show you some examples here. This is a search result for criminal defense lawyer. And this was taken over the course of like a couple weeks. I do screenshots and just compare side by side. You'll see that the top 2 remain consistent. And then the ones below it are like shifting all over the place. We see like, one will drop one position, one will go up. We have a couple that just vanish. What's going on there? I'll explain that later. Then this is one for a personal injury attorney, San Diego. And you'll see the same pattern. You see ones going down, going up. The only one that remained consistent for this case was the top listing. And then here's another example for lawn care. Not as competitive, not as many listings for Google to kind of place in order, so not as much fluctuation, but you will still see that the top 4 are the only ones that remain consistent, and then down below you've got this kind of shifting going on. So like, how do you explain this to a small business owner who like barely knows how to open their email or get to Google? I kind of feel like local search rankings are about as consistent as my son's mood swings. It is very frustrating. So my tip to you, if you work at an agency and you deal with local search, do not send ranking reports to clients. It is confusing. It results in a lot of questions that are very difficult to answer. What we do at my agency instead is we shift from focusing and obsessing on rank trackers. We do that internally ourselves to analyze data, but we don't want to confuse our clients. So what we do is we track their calls and their leads so that we can better represent what they're actually getting as an ROI from us working on them. And if you're not sure how to do this, Darren Shaw did this great article that I linked to here that shows you how you can track calls inside Google My Business. No, I'm not talking about Google My Business Insights. Those things suck. So you want to definitely check out this article and make sure you are using call tracking numbers inside Google My Business. Next, I'm going to talk about the Google My Business landing page, which is a term that I kind of made up because I didn't know what to call this thing. But it is basically the page on your website that you link to inside the Google My Business dashboard. So I've highlighted it here there. I'm going to tell you a story. I have this client. He's an attorney in Texas. And when he first started his law firm, he had one location in Houston, as most people typically do. But he grew fast. He started opening more offices and hiring more attorneys. So, typically in these scenarios, you have the main homepage of the website optimized for Houston in this case, because that was his first office, that's where he's ranking, and as he expands, he adds location pages. Makes perfect sense. So when he added his Dallas location, he adds a page on his site that's all about Dallas. It's got Dallas in the H1s, the title tags, all that nice stuff, and that's all fine and dandy. What I was interested in kind of trying to think about was, okay, which one should I link Google My Business to? Should I link it to his Dallas page or should I link it to his homepage? And you might think, like, that's a stupid question to ask. Of course you would link it to Dallas. That's the location we're talking about here. But the reason why I was questioning it is because the local ranking algorithm is made of 3 main components. I already talked about proximity. Relevance and prominence are the other 2. And technically speaking, relevance would be things like content, things like, his Dallas location page is relevant because his citations mention Dallas and they're linking to that page. And his meta tags mention Dallas. But his homepage is more prominent. It's got more links. It's got, way more authority. It's been around a lot longer. So kind of like my kids do with their dance-offs, I really wanted to figure out which of these 2 was stronger and more important, so I decided to do a test. We took his Dallas location. Inside Google My Business, we changed the link. We went from going to the location page to going to the home page. And this is what we saw happen as a result to the search queries traffic that he got. And this was, again, just local pat queries, and it went up pretty much right away. So you're like, this is interesting. But theoretically speaking, his homepage is, Houston, but it's still in Texas. So the Texas singles are sort of relevant-ish. How would this work if we did one of his other locations that wasn't even in Texas at all? So we decided to switch his New Orleans location as well. And again, remember that I'm now linking a listing about New Orleans to a homepage that is optimized for Houston, Texas. We saw the same exact pattern, an instant spike when we did this. So the winner, from this test was definitely prominence. However, I would suggest you test this out yourself. Always be testing, as Rob was saying earlier. This may not be a strategy that would work if you have 15,000 locations. However, we have seen really good results from businesses that have maybe 2 to 15 locations, a really good way to increase ranking with minimal effort. Next, I'm going to talk a bit about reviews. So we know as a whole, yes, reviews impact ranking. They're 15% according to the local search ranking factors study. Everybody kind of knows that, not new information. I wanted to try and figure out what I could teach you guys about reviews because I really love understanding how things exactly impact ranking. So I was trying to think of how to illustrate this because it is very challenging to tell someone, yes, reviews impact ranking when businesses generally get reviews over a long period of time. So you can't really say this ranking increase was definitely a result of that review because that business may have got some new links or some new content or something else, or Google just decided to screw us all over and update their algorithm right in the middle of the test like they like to do to me all the time. So I was trying to figure out how to figure this out. So I thought I'd take an opposite approach and look at what happens to a business when they lose a large chunk of reviews. So I had a situation for this because as Cyrus kind of mentioned, I'm what's called a Google product expert. We're a group of volunteers that basically help Google for free, because we're nice, I guess. So we moderate the Google My Business forum, and we have people all the time that are reporting competitors for violations. So those threads are always quite interesting, and we had a lot of people that would report competitors that were violating Google's review guidelines. So I'm going to share this one violation with you. If you're not familiar with this concept called review gating, this is how it works. So it's this concept that a lot of review tools use where they first ask someone, are you happy with your service? And if they're like, yes, we're happy, then you're like, please leave us a review online. And if they're like, no, you suck, you're like, okay, let's go to this little private feedback forum. Don't leave us a review. So this concept is very popular among small business owners because seriously, who in their right mind would want to ask a pissed off customer to leave them a review? However, it is against Google's guidelines. They actually outline it in their guidelines. And unfortunately, some people don't know that it's against Google's guidelines, so they are using tools that do this. So this dentist that got reported, he lost 98% of his reviews as a result of doing this. So this guy, whoever he is, don't know him, he had a very bad day, went from 738 reviews to 12 reviews, over 48 hours. I feel really bad for whoever his SEO company is, sorry if you're here. But this guy obviously had a huge drop, so you're like, ooh, this is gonna be interesting. Let's see what happens to his ranking. And as a side note, just to make sure you're not in that boat yourself, make sure you use a tool that does not violate Google's guidelines. I strongly recommend GatherUp. They are a sponsor here at Mozcon. They have a booth downstairs. Yeah, they are awesome. They are run by two of the best people in this industry, known as Aaron Weike and Mike Blumenthal. So we use them for all our clients, so check them out. But anyways, back to that dentist story. So we tracked it over the period of several months. And I was looking at like some of their main keywords, like dentist, dentist near me, the ones that were getting traffic. This was not what I was expecting to see. They didn't move at all. And you can see in the screenshots, if you look closely, they went from like 738 reviews down to 12, then backed up to 40 because yes, they started asking customers again to leave them reviews. And then it wasn't until after the June algorithm update that they dropped a total whopping 1 position. And it's like, huh, okay. So I have this theory. The 1 position drop, I believe, maybe, was related to the fact that their CTR would have dropped in that 2-month period. Because before, they had like 700 reviews, and their average competitor had maybe like 10 or 30 reviews, so they were killing it. And I would think over time that Google would adjust ranking based on click-through rate drops. Theory, can't prove it. What I'm a lot more confident about is why it never changed to begin with. See, because I had this come up on several other cases, and it was mind-boggling. I was like, how could this be? So I went to a friend of mine named Joel Headley, who is like one of the smartest people on the planet when it comes to Google My Business, because he worked on the team at Google for 10 years. I said, Joel, can you please make this sense out of me? Like, this makes no sense. Like, what is going on here? He told me, reviews that are removed for violations are not removed. They are just hidden from public view. And I just looked at him and was like, huh. Google really needs to fix that. So, if any of you know anyone at Google that can like make that change, that would be great. But I, was like, okay, that was crazy. Obviously, these businesses that are using review violations are winning, and that's nuts. But to try and again illustrate how reviews impact ranking, I was like, all right, what about, we'll take a different case. What about a business that has negative reviews? What's the impact of getting those removed? Because, theoretically speaking, if their average rating goes up, their calls should go up and all that. So we had this new client of ours who is a realtor, and they came to us because they were the unfortunate victims, I guess, of being mentioned in a press article locally. So this journalist decided to trash talk them, say some bad things about them. A bunch of people read the article, got really pissed off, and went and left them a whole bunch of 1-star reviews. It's important to note that these types of reviews, which are kind of growing in popularity, are against Google's guidelines. So if someone in the press says something negative about you, which happens a lot, and a whole bunch of people go on and leave you a negative review, Google will remove these reviews if you put together a detailed document report. So that is exactly what my team did. The first thing we did for them, we're like, we are going to raise their average, because they have a 3.6, and all these reviews were from 2 years ago, and this poor guy's been dealing with this for 2 years. So we had Google remove all the negative reviews, there was 15 total, related to the press coverage, and we were stoked. We were so happy. His average went from a 3.6 up to a 4.5, and we're like, oh my gosh, we are so awesome, patting ourselves on the back, yada, yada. I'm like, I'm gonna put this in my Mozcon presentation, show you guys this like awesome story, until I went to his call volume and realized his call volume the next month actually went down. And I was like, okay. That's interesting. So I started digging into like what was going on. We're like, why is he, not getting as much volume? And then looking at some of the main keywords that he ranks for and gets traffic from, we noticed this crazy drop off. He went from being in the 3-pack to just gone, like nowhere. So it made me feel kind of like my daughter here feels about her Cheerios. And I was very frustrated, and I just didn't understand what was going on. And it's important to remember, ranking is based on a lot more than who has the best reviews. And you might know that sitting here, but like I have this conversation daily with business owners that are like, Joy, why am I not the highest rated, ranked business? I have the best reviews, and that should be the way it is. It's not how it is, so you gotta remember that. However, in this case, what actually happened with my client, why he wasn't ranking anywhere, was this lovely kiss of death in local search that we know as the filter. So the filter in the local search world is a bit different than how it works in organic. On organic, we all know that Google has a filter. Google filters duplicate content. They do not want the same pages ranking multiple times. They don't want the same content ranking multiple times. I have this long detailed article on the Moz blog I wrote a couple years ago about this topic. Still pertains today. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about what we call the possum filter. So this filter is something that Google has in the local results, where if they see 2 businesses in the same business category close together, they kind of see them as duplicates, and they usually filter out all but 1, maybe 2. This happens a lot with realtors. It happens a lot with dentists. We also see it happen a lot with lawyers. And here is an illustration that kind of shows you how it works. You go to Google, you do a search, And then what's in green there is what you would normally see. And you've got this one law firm that's ranking. You zoom in, all of a sudden all these other listings appear. These listings were filtered because they are in the same building as this lawyer that's ranking. So in this case for my client, we had just started working with him and we're like, all right, there's 2 realtors in his building that are ranking. He is one of 3 in the top 20 that is filtered currently. Back to the drawing board, let us see what this other realtor or these other 2 realtors are doing better than him. So I go and I look and I see the realtor that's ranking and I see this. The name of the business as listed inside Google My Business is the realtor's name, the name of the city, and then the word real estate professional. And you might be sitting here going, okay, what's wrong with that? Well, keywords in the business name, which I also call keyword stuffing, is also against Google's guidelines. That listing should have just been the realtor's name if you want to actually comply with Google guidelines. And it gives them a huge benefit to add the keywords because having keywords in the business name is the number 4 ranking factor. It shouldn't be, but it is. And to help illustrate this, in case this concept may be new to you guys, I wanted to try and show how much this actually does impact things. So we did this test. We had this listing for a restaurant. And just to be clear, this restaurant does not have a salad bar. They don't offer a salad bar. They don't have it on their menu. They don't have it on their links or their content or anything because they don't have a salad bar. So I wanted to know if I could get this restaurant to rank for the term salad bar or salad bar in their city by simply adding it to the business name. So I did that. I went inside Google My Business. I added the word salad bar to their business name. Overnight, they went from not ranking to ranking in the top 5. I left them in for a few days, took them out, back down to nothing. Added them back. You can see it was kind of fluctuating because maybe I was confusing Google at that point, but they went back into the top 5. So this works phenomenally. And you might be sitting there going, great, thanks, Joy. I'm going to go back. I'm going to add keywords to all my clients, and they're all going to rank overnight just like you just illustrated. That's awesome. No, do not do that. So let me clarify. Violating Google's guidelines like this can actually result in Google removing your listing. And if you don't believe me, check out this forum thread. There has been a huge uptick in suspensions as of mid-June. So bad to the point where people that have their listings wrongly suspended are waiting 3 to 4 weeks to even get them back. And just keep that in mind when you're kind of going down that road. You don't want to do that unless you are okay with having no listing possibly forever or at least for 3 to 4 weeks. What I am suggesting you do is I am suggesting that you report the morons that are doing this to Google. And you can do that using this business redressal complaint form. Don't ask me who came up with that name, it's horrible, but it is unique, so if you type that into Google, you will get the form. This form actually goes to someone on the Google team who will review it, an actual human being, and take action on it. Usually it takes about 2 weeks. However, probably thanks to me telling you all about it, it's going to be longer now. So the other thing that you can report on that form is fake listings. It's my favorite. So I have this client, and they are in the insurance vertical, and they ranked really well for home insurance queries for a long time. And then all of a sudden earlier this year, we see this happen. We're like, they went from 3rd to like 10th, 11th. Like, what's going on here? You'll see we solved the problem, but I'm going to show you what happened. I did a search on Google for home insurance, and what do I get? I get a bunch of listings titled Homeowners Insurance Provo, Homeowners Insurance Orem. These are not real companies, just to be clear in case anyone's confused. These are lead gen listings. They are selling leads to actual insurance companies. There was tons of these. This is not an isolated thing. If you want to see an example, I guarantee you, pull out your phone, search dog bite attorney, you'll probably find some fake listings. These exist a lot, usually for long tail keywords that no one's checking. And kind of like was said yesterday when Will Reynolds was talking about long tail keywords, the spammers know this. They know this. They create listings for those long tail keywords. There is an article that is amazing if you have not read it or heard about it. It was written by the Wall Street Journal very recently, talks about this problem, talks about the real impact it makes on those legitimate businesses that are getting outranked by this crap. And one of the things that I really loved about this article is that one of those guys, who's probably like he probably has a dartboard with my face on it in his office, but he has these listings and he creates them and he talked about what he does. And he was talking about how he charges $100 for each of these fake listings, and that he can do up to $3,800 a day. So this explains the volume, right? I mean, you do the math on that, you can see why this guy's in this business. But if you're sitting there thinking, okay, Joy, great, he creates 3,800 listings a day, but these are new listings. They don't have websites, they don't have any authority, they've been around for, like a few days. They have no reviews, they have no citations, they will not rank anywhere, right? Because we all know on the organic side, like stuff like this, like It takes, about a year, maybe 5.7% of, all the new published pages will rank in the top 10 on Google. This is like pretty known stuff. We tell this to our clients all the time, guys, SEO takes time, we have to work on it for months, don't expect rankings overnight. Well, I guess unless you're in local, because ranking in the 3-pack on the first page takes less than 1 day. I can tell you this for certain because we have a client that has a new office. The first month that we created the listing for him, it got 813 searches. He ranked for very competitive terms in the most competitive city in the United States. And these are, on the organic side, it's gonna be a while before he's there. These are like businesses that spend a lot of money on SEO every month, and he still gets volume. And the actions on the listing the first month weren't as high, they were 18, but you do the math, you can see why this business is kind of thriving. The number of fake listings is pretty high. Google mentioned that they removed 3 million of these last year, which, whatever, yay Google. But this is a 50% increase since 2017. So this isn't dropping, this is increasing. And what really astounded me, that reason why I really wanted to hit home with this, according to this article, 250,000 of these that Google removed were reported by users using that form. So you might be thinking, okay, this is awesome, that's a really high number. It is not a high number. I'll explain. We have a client, they are in the glass repair industry. One client, one small business, one industry. We have had Google remove 316 listings that are fake that have popped up in the last year and a half. So that's one client. Another client that we've been working with for a while, we have had 3 months and 92 listings reported and removed. They are in the junk car space. And this is something we see that is expanding due to the obvious volume and benefits. We've seen this now with dentists. We're like, how is there spam in dentists? But there is, and it's crazy. And if you're not looking for it, I really suggest checking out long tail keywords for various terms, and you will probably find some fake listings. And why you should care, I care. Just to clarify, my walk-on song, Another One Bites the Dust, that's what I listen to when I'm reporting these people. It's fine. So this is a client of ours that is recent. The first thing we did first month, we're like, oh, tree removal, there's gonna be so much spam. We went and we got rid of 7 listings, 7, that's it, not a lot of effort. This was the result. They went from not ranking very far to ranking all over the place. And yes, that's really cool. You should totally share before and after screenshots with your clients because they love seeing this crap and understanding the benefit. But at the end of the day, remember, it's about calls. And what really made me happy with this case is when I went to them and after like a month, they're like, wow, normally this time of year, because we're seasonal, our trend is flat or down, and we're currently up by 10%. And that is so wonderful and exciting. So I hope you guys go away from this and look and report some spam. But thank you. If you have some questions, please come and find me after, and I'd love to talk to you.